you're having a good day. I'm Sarah Dector. I'm Comprehensive and Neighborhood Planning Manager for the city. And today with me is Jess McNeely. Introduce yourself.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Jess McNeely. I am the Coconino County Assistant Director of Community Development and Planning Manager. And I'm standing in for Melissa Shaw, our long-range planner, who will normally be your county liaison for this group. A couple of the folks in here who have done work with the County Planning and Zoning Commission, I know quite well, but I'm happy to be the rest of you.
So we want to welcome you to the first meeting of the Regional Plan 2045 Committee. So thank you all for joining us. This being our first meeting and this being a working group style committee for both the city and the county, staff has prepared this agenda to kind of mimic what we would normally do with the commission. But a real goal of the meeting tonight is for the committee to determine how you want to proceed and run your meetings and what is important to achieve in them and if the tools we are bringing to the table achieve that or not. So the real purpose of today's meeting is how will we work together, not necessarily let's start digging into plan content. So there's no public comment at this meeting. So if you're not a member of the committee, you're welcome to observe. By the next meeting, we will have decided on our public comment criteria and how we're going to do it, and there will be public comment at those meetings. So with that, I am going to be our acting facilitator today, and I will do a roll call. A few people, though, I know are running late, and I will make sure we get them checked in when they're here. So is Sarah Ailman here? Alaman, thank you. Alaman here. I know she is coming. Allie Applin.
Here.
Paul Byer.
Here.
Tina Berger. Here. Alicia Cheek. Taylin Groom. She's right there. We got her in the corner. Jess, is it Jess or Jessie Delmar? Jess Delmar? Nope. Abel Estrella.
Here.
Dirk Foreman.
Here.
Anthony Garcia.
Present.
Susie Garrettson. Here. David Hayward.
Here.
Michelle James.
Here online.
Julie Lead, I know, is running late, and so is Andrea Moronic. Rick
Here.
Miller. Here. Tom Pearson.
Here.
Walter Phelps is absent. Kimberly Robinson is running late. John Ruggles.
Here.
John Van Landingham is absent. Diane Bosick. Al White. And Christy Zeller is absent. So the city of Flagstaff begins its meetings with our Indigenous land acknowledgement, which I will now read. The city of Flagstaff humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of this area's Indigenous nations and original stewards. These lands, still inhabited by Native descendants, border mountains sacred to Indigenous peoples. We honor them, their legacy, their traditions, and their continued contributions. We celebrate their past, present, and future generations who will forever know this place as home. So, welcome everyone. This meeting today is scheduled from 5 to 8, which I know is a long meeting. And the reason that I did that is because we have a lot of getting to know each other to do. One of the things that Jess and Melissa and I talked about as you all were kind of being formed and invited as a group is that this is really a group that has never worked together before. Maybe worked with a few people in the room, but this is a new team to help build a new regional plan that can be adopted by both the city and county and guide the next 20 years of planning decisions that our community needs to make. So we want to spend a little time going around the room and letting everyone say a little bit about themselves and what drew them to be interested in planning, and then maybe also something that people wouldn't know about you just by looking at you. So that's always a good thing to say. So I have one member who has who's not making it today because she's just not able to be here tonight. And I'll introduce myself that way, and then I'll read her introduction, and then we'll go around the room a little. Hi, Andrea.
Hi.
Great. David wants to do.
I was going to introduce Christy, since I know she probably did.
Yeah,
She's
I know.
introducing herself.
She did,
apparently.
Look at, people are jumping in for their friends already. So I said I'm Sarah Dechter. I have been with the city for 10 years, and prior to that, I had 10 years of federal planning experience with the USDA Forest Service. I grew up in Florida, and I became a planner via Florida State University, and then moved around the West, and before I ended up in Flagstaff in 2010. Something people wouldn't know by looking at me is that I've been a handbell choir director, and I can ring 4 to 6 bells at a time. So that's, and I have really small hands, so it's actually kind of like it's harder than it looks. Christy Zeller, who's not able to be here tonight, just wanted everyone to know that she's excited to be part of this effort. She's lived in Flagstaff for almost 25 years and has been involved in a lot of local nonprofits along the way. She said, it's her 16th year as the executive director of Hayden Montessori School, located in the Plaza Vieja neighborhood. Together, she hopes we can move Flagstaff forward in a sustainable and inclusive direction that addresses the need for our diverse community, affordable housing, and addressing climate change are two of her biggest priorities as we work to leave things better for our children. So Christy didn't tell us her secret talent or something we wouldn't know about her by looking at her, but we'll ask her next time. Do you want to go ahead, David?
Sure. My name is David Haywood. I have two businesses. One, I'm a real estate developer. I guess an end user of the code. I think because you said what got you interested in planning, and I think for me, it was my interest in planning that got me into the job of being a developer, as opposed to being a developer got me interested in planning. I think I took the wrong major in college, international political economy, and I should have been an architect or a planner, but I've made up for it now. My other business is called Restoration Soils. We produce compost, mulch, and amended soil products, and occasionally fall off tractors while we're doing it, which is why I'm in a cast here. I guess one thing, well, you wouldn't know by looking at me, but by listening to me, you know that I was born in England, but I've also lived on every other continent other than Australasia. So I guess after this is done, moving to New Zealand.
I'm Rick Miller. I've been in Flagstaff about 35 years. Retired in the Game and Fish Department. While I was with Game and Fish, I spent about 6 years being a planner. So I didn't want to be a planner. I got assigned to be a planner and learned from there. I have hopes. I've seen it done well. I hope we can do it well.
Okay, I hope everyone can hear me. My voice does not carry well. My name is John Ruggles. I am currently serving on the County Planning and Zoning Commission. I've been involved with planning, zoning, and land use in Arizona on and off over a period of 35 years now. My introduction is going to be a little different than most people. I'm not going to tell you how long I've lived here and what I've done. I'm going to attempt to give you a little insight into my character and who I am. I have 3 rules that I typically go by, whether it's Planning and Zoning Commission, any other committee, this committee as well. Very simply put, they are to leave all personal, political, and ideological agendas at the door when I come in. Second thing, civility and courtesy have to be exercised at all times. And now keep in mind, I'm speaking strictly for myself. Informed debate, which is number 3, is necessary for reasoned decision making. To that end, I am just absolutely dedicated to doing my homework and to doing it as thoroughly as possible. Very simply because it not only benefits me, but it's a benefit to everyone else here. And I think that's enough said. Thank you.
You don't have anything that we wouldn't know by looking at you?
Well, not without someone saying that's a kind of an inflated resume you're giving us.
All right.
So I just assume leave it at that. You'll get to find more about me as we go along. Good or bad, take your pick.
Hello, everyone. I'm Anthony Garcia. For the past 15 years, I've been on and off a steady public participant at the city council meetings. That's how I got introduced into government. I had absolutely no knowledge of the place or the terminology. One of the things that I learned most about was the last regional plan with Roger Eastman. I did a lot of things with the design and charrettes, and I learned a ton of acronyms because at first I thought everybody was speaking like a different language because everything was in code. But I learned a lot during that time. 7 years as a beautification and public art commissioner, and currently sit on Sunnyside Neighborhood Association's redevelopment committee. And my day job is just driving a truck. So something you might not know about me is between 2011 and 2017, I drove over 1 million miles and flew over 1 million miles because my job was a little bit unique. And in the process, I hung out and did my little own sociology experiments in plenty of, in about 620 different cities in the country. Weirdly enough. That's it.
Hi, everybody. I'm Allie Applin. My day job is Director of Community Relations at NAU, and I've lived in Flagstaff for about 13 years with a brief foray into Germany, which ended when COVID happened. So we flew back March 20th of 2020, which was very interesting to say the least. I'm interested in this because I think, planning affects so much of us, but I don't really know kind of what goes into it behind the scenes. So interested to be a part of it and find out, why all of you are here and how we can all work together. So that'll be kind of fun. Something you might not know about me is I was born in Hawaii and I've lived there twice as an adult, most recently in Maui before we came to Flagstaff. So.
I'm Al White. I've been here since God walked. I did 12 years on the city council. I was actually at the first one of these back in the 90s. As a private citizen, I went to 8 out of 16 meetings. Learned an awful lot about Flagstaff politics and how things get done. I just am fascinated with and very interested in how we grow and how we proceed and how we make a success out of this regional plan so that it accomplishes some things other than just being a reference used by every council meeting staff person to justify their agenda. And I think that that's an important thing that we could all try to do together. What you might not know about me was I landed in Arizona after running out of money at the Grand Canyon. I had gotten out of film school in Massachusetts, was on my way to work on Laverne and Shirley, and I never made it. I ended up doing 13 years at the Grand Canyon in the hotel business instead.
This is interesting, by the way. I'm Susie Garrettson. I lived in this area for about 45 years, so I've been here a long time. I've seen lots of changes, as I'm sure you all have. But I really wasn't interested in being on this, but Patrice Horseman told me I had to. But also, what you don't know about me probably is that I'm from Blythe, California. Was born and raised there, and it is a very sad town. It's really, really changed, since my growing up there. I still love it. I go there, but I wonder if they had a regional plan. Anyway, that's it.
My name is BJ Dempsey. I'm an engineer for BNSF Railway. I'm here as an observer. Big about me is I was a gymnast my entire, when I was younger, and I did go to the Junior Olympics for gymnastics.
Oh, nice.
Maple Estrella, family got here in about 1902. Not about, they got here in 1902. And I worked for the state of Arizona. 33 years I was a wrestling and wrestling official in college and high school for 44 years. And I love to cook. Good barbecues or, and it's nice in this area. One of the jobs that I had was a tribal liaison. And the thing that you don't know about me is that I made it a point to learn all 22 languages. Greeting, I don't know their language, but what I can do, especially if I practice some more, is greet every single of the 22 tribes in their language.
Hello, I'm Dirk Foreman. How'd I get? Let's see, I've been in Flagstaff since 1974. Prior to that, my family lived on the reservation at Shanto, where my mom taught school at the boarding school there. I went to some of my years of grade school in Kayenta. That's a 100-mile round trip day on a bus to go to public school from Shanto. We didn't get to go to the boarding school because we weren't the public kids. So we rode the bus 100 miles a day. So I've been here since '74. I went to junior high here, high school here, college at NAU. Went into the Forest Service shortly after that, and I worked for a number of seasons and a few years for them. Then I kind of shifted over. I'm long-winded, I apologize. 35 years in public service, most recently retired from the Highlands Fire District and Kachina Village in Mount Air as their fire chief. So currently I work part-time for the Ponderosa Fire District out in Belmont in their Wildland Fire Division, and I consult on their strategic planning process. I got involved in planning with rewrite of the county's zoning ordinance on the committee, the advisory group that worked on that, as well as a subdivision ordinance and maybe a couple other, some wildland urban interface kind of stuff, some other things with the county. So I enjoy planning as much as you can say. I enjoy it. I'm glad to be here. I'm here kind of at the behest of Supervisor Ryan. It's kind of a favor to him. I'm going to inflate my resume just a little bit. Say one thing that you may not know about me is September 7th, as deemed by the Coconino County Board of Supervisors in 2021, is Dirk Foreman Day. I'm also a blacksmith. I make knives. Bladesmith. I don't do any other stuff. I just make knives.
My name is Ida Kedrick, and I've been here since 2021. I'm originally from San Diego, and my supervisor requested that I be here as an observer too. So this is my first time.
I'm also an observer. My name is Dee Hoagland. I'm a retired teacher. I've been here about 20 years. Yeah, I'm just here to learn more about what the city is planning.
My name is Talene Corlin, and I'm an activist, and I've been involved in public policy programs, the list, the rest is for like 30 years. And I got involved with planning because I lived in a town called Meadow Lakes, Alaska, And they wanted to go from an unincorporated city to an incorporated city. And it was determined by the real estate developers that they wanted to develop the way they wanted to. And it didn't involve a lot of public comment in the decision. And so my philosophy always has been that you can let progress happen or you can be in charge of it. And I like the latter. I guess the thing you would know by looking at me, or maybe you would, I've driven the last 11 times back and forth from Arizona. And 2 times by myself, once in the winter. And I just want to say that I will never do that.
My name's Diane Bosick. I'm retired from the Ecological Restoration Institute at Northern Arizona University. I spent my entire career working on the front of conservation and biodiversity. And so I was drawn to this process. It touches on a whole bunch of things, but I also think it's important as we grow to think about the natural environment where we're embedded and the species that don't sit at this table. So I think there's a lot to cover that we'll touch on those things. The thing you don't know about me is that in October of 2020, I carved a pumpkin as a joke. It was a Zoom call that had 4 pumpkins and windows and had Zoom on it, and sent a picture to my kid who put it out on his blog. He's a professor at NYU, and 275,000 likes later. It appeared on NBC, and I also got a call from Zoom. NBC wanted the rights, but the elk had already eaten the pumpkin.
My name is Paul Byer. I live in the Brandon Homes neighborhood right across the street from 2 or 3 blocks of low-income housing that the city runs. And I'm happy it's there. The city does a great job. I'm happy to have low-income people as my neighbors. They're wonderful. We will no doubt, not this group, but we will double or triple the housing density there. That's our good thing. We got to do it. I guess more important to me is that in the last 3 years, we've done some great things in the city. We've adopted our first ever climate neutrality plan, our first ever 10-year housing plan, our first ever active transportation management plan. Cool stuff. It's got to be reflected in what we do here. I think it's beautiful. They're vague as all hell every time I read. Oh, what is that coming? You know, so hopefully we'll make it more specific and you know, very exciting. Also, you know, we have the southern 20% of the city is undeveloped, and that's going to change. This is our best chance to shape that. I don't have the answer, none of us do, but you know, we can work together and maybe move ourselves closer to that. So I'm excited to be here. I guess the thing I do that you probably don't know is that I'm an avid contra dancer. It's a line dance, a real fun dance system. About 4 times a year I go to weekends, which go from Friday afternoon, Sunday afternoon. And over that, I've been to about 50 of these contra dance weekend camps. I have never sat out for contra dance. So over 48 hours, I danced for 20 hours.
Wow.
Oh, man.
At my age, I know that will end someday soon. I love it.
My name's Tom Pearson. I live in Coconino Estates, and I'm one of those people you would call a flood impacted victim. So as a result of that, a few friends of mine got together and we organized a group called Flagstaff First, not to be confused with Flagstaff Community First. We got organized about a year ago And our purpose was to do what we could to alleviate the threat of wildfire, flooding, and drought. We took our, I guess, our objective from the Carbon Climate Action and Adaptation Plan of 2018, which listed those three as the main environmental threats to Flagstaff. So that's our mission. That's what we're working on. I'm a retired Navy meteorologist and oceanographer. Was in the Navy for 28 years. Moved here in 2013. I guess the one thing that I could think of that you might not guess is I also volunteer as a telescope operator up at Lowell Observatory in Gogo. If you've ever been up there, you might see me running one of those scopes.
Tina Berger, grew up in La Jolla, California, girl. Talk about change. I go to see my godparents, but that's about it. So I watched a lot of change happen there. Ended up in Flagstaff, Arizona. My dad was a Navy SEAL. Where my mom ended up in Flag. I was 16 years old. I taught real estate at 19 years old. Advised the city on several concepts when I was really young. Moved to Scottsdale. Ended up on an advisory committee down there for the Scottsdale Air Park, where we fundamentally took a plan that the developers wanted to just get their arms around, make a lot of money, and take advantage of the city. We came in and sort of junked it down a little bit, created a green belt, made sure the walkways were green, made sure that they were doing everything right. So I spent 20 years of my career doing about 1 million feet in Scottsdale and Phoenix. I got out of there because I disagreed with what was starting to happen in our industry. I became a Social Security benefit liaison in Congress for disability. I'm about ready to retire from that job as an advocate. I'm doing a site, Anthony Tomino, part of this is the Work of Dreams. I'm the site manager to get that large community open. And so I've been in Sunnyside for off and on 40 years. I have 3 generations here, live in a flood zone, went through the fire. I'm here at the behest of Jeronimo Vasquez and Patrice. I do a lot of work with them. I'm here to sort of, I'm just going to echo everybody's voice. We have a chance to move Flag forward, but it just makes sense. It has to, but we have to move it forward to a place where we are critically mass taking care of species. And now we've got fire and flood. I'm here to be a sounding board with my expertise of what I know, and that's it. I'm gonna just be here at the behest of everyone as a kind of a dictionary, encyclopedia for making sure codes reflect what the county's trying to do, what the city's doing. I'm just here really to help. Oh, what you don't know about me?
Oh, yeah, so we're gonna do that.
I'm sure. So growing up in La Jolla, my dad made 5 summer stories with Bruce Brown. So I was a semi-pro surfer for Oki in Hawaii at 16.
Hi, my name is Andrea Marina, and I serve on the board of the Southside Neighborhood Association. I live in Pine Knoll, near Brandon Homes. And I'm also the president of the board of the Copio Coalition for Children and Youth. And I work at Northland Family Health Center. So I'm a trauma therapist and a clinical director over there. And as you may know, we have 2 shelters there, and sheltering unaccompanied children as well as survivors of domestic violence. And I'm here because my trauma work that I've been doing, like finding solutions, is really like ran late, trying to get out of the office today. Yeah, like really wanting to focus in particular on the kiddos, and making space Flagstaff to be going place for them to live and thrive. And something that you wouldn't know about me looking at me is that I'm a beginning martial artist, so I have my gold belt in Kung Fu. And have a lot more practice to go to get where I want to go, but I'm sticking with it even though I'm bad at it, which it's been fun. So, yeah, that's
Hi, I'm Jess McNeely. I'm here in my staff capacity, my job as the planning manager for Coconino County. I've been working for Coconino County for about 6 years. As a planning manager there, I did a year working for the city of Sedona as the community development director there. So I've been involved in planning and zoning this region. I've been working as a local government planner for about 20 years. Studied, have an undergrad in architecture, master plan. Went into that career out of the Army, where I was an Army engineer. As a matter of fact, I retired out of the Army Reserves last year with 30 years. So building bases in the Army all over the world, experiencing living in other parts of the world, seeing how they live in Europe, in Asia, in other parts of the world, really ways of doing planning. How we make it work. So I'm happy to serve. And you typically see Melissa Shaw here as the county representative. She's our long-range planner. Back here to support as much as possible as well. And I will be out here in a few minutes to go present to the board of supervisors on our updates to the county's comprehensive plan.
And last person in the room.
How long have you been tolerating me?
This is Mark Revis, go ahead, you introduce yourself. I don't know if you heard what we were doing, but if you introduce yourself, how you got interested in planning, and something we wouldn't know about you by looking at you.
Well, actually, I'll think about that one. But I work for Sarah. I am actually a licensed architect. I am the neighborhood planner and the heritage preservation officer for the city of Flagstaff. Probably the most recent thing that people have been noting about me, I actually look like the guy. I'm related to James Addison Revis, who was the Baron of Arizona that tried to control about half of Arizona. So yeah, that's mine.
There's a Vincent Price movie, is that what we've determined? If
There's
people are
called the
good?
Baron of Arizona, so yeah, so that's my story. I'm still in planning, I've carried that on.
So now we have 3 people online who I'm gonna ask to introduce themselves. Kim, do you wanna go first?
Hey, y'all, sure. Good evening, everyone. Hi, I'm Kim Robinson. I am the project coordinator for the Southside Community Association's The Live Black Experience Project. I'm also a local business owner. I own 2 businesses here in Flagstaff. My day job is a project manager. So I'm a contractor and I do project management. The way I got into planning and logistics is basically from college and being in the military. I was a logistics readiness officer. I am a bit of a logistics nerd. So transportation and planning is my jam. And something I don't really talk about that someone probably wouldn't know by looking at me is that I was a truck driver. I still maintain a Class A CDL, and but I also competed in ballroom for several years. So that's a part of my past that I have never really shared with anyone. So welcome to my circle of trust. And it's so great to be working with y'all. I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Kim. Michelle James and Michelle McNulty are on next. So Michelle James and then Michelle McNulty.
Okay, sounds good. So my name is Michelle James. I'm the executive director of Friends of Flagstaff's Future for the last 3 years. I've lived in Flagstaff for the last 28 years. I worked for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in Flagstaff, as well as NAU as an aquatic ecology research coordinator and faculty. I previously served on the Regional Plan Technical Advisory Group, also called the TAG, which you guys may hear more about. We just had our last meeting a week or so ago. I started my career as a wildlife biologist with the U.S. Forest Service in Oregon, and thus I think of myself as an initiated into planning at a very young age. One thing you wouldn't know about me would be that I contributed to the development of a wildlife corridor map for the county comprehensive plan in the early 2000s. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Michelle McNulty. I'm the planning director for the city of Flagstaff. I guess I got into planning accidentally. I started off in cultural anthropology and took some urban planning courses as just an elective and was hooked and kind of became a planning junkie ever since. One thing maybe you wouldn't know from looking at me is I participated on a curling team for 5 years and pretty good sweeper. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you, everyone. I know we have one more committee member who might be making her way over here, who's involved at City Council. Julie Lead might be on her way. So if Julie comes and we're presenting or talking, I'll pause and let her introduce herself, and so that you can get to know her too. So today, getting to our agenda today, I want to make sure, Michelle said she just left City Council, which I believe. So this committee today, I'd like to go over a little bit about what we've been doing with the regional plan. I recognize some folks here have been to most of the meetings, some have been to a couple meetings, and some have sort of been watching the newsletter updates, but haven't made it in person to things as we've been working on this. So we want to kind of get everybody caught up on what we've been doing, why we're doing it, and the logic behind the process overall that Melissa and I have been kind of shepherding along the way for the last about a year that we've really been working with the public. So let's look good, or is my covering it up partially? Let's see. I have to go make an adjustment to the screen so you guys can see the slides. Okay. So the process of updating the Flagstaff Regional Plan actually has 4 phases, and we really designed this process with the input from the Board of Supervisors, with input from City Council. We went out and talked to community members before we put this process together, and we based it on a lot of things that were lessons learned from past efforts. And so you are entering this as a group and a new team to the process at a midpoint where we have done staff out in the community a bunch of analysis and reaching out and building some excitement around the project and starting to talk to people about vision and goals. And now we're at the point where we are starting to write the next version of the plan. And that's why you all have been gathered to this part of the process. I think, as Michelle mentioned, there was also a technical advisory group. I'll get into that, but really this phase 3 is where the committee is coming into play to help us actually create a plan, because we've got a lot of lessons learned we gathered, and this is really different. The last time we did this in 2009, a group of people just like you sat in a room and there was no real work done ahead of time. We're like, you're it, and go out and figure out how to write a plan. And that would probably, what people who experienced that told us was that was really intimidating. Everybody's interested in planning, but there's a lot of logistics to get it all right and get it pulled together. So what we've done this time is we've pulled a lot of information together. We've pulled a lot of community input together. So you are starting from that foundation, which means there'll be some homework these first couple meetings for you to do, because a lot of it is living on our project website and ready to catch you up quickly. So for the next like 20 minutes or so, I'm gonna get you guys caught up as much as I can. We'll take a break and we'll come back for more discussion on how this group is going to work. There we go. The City of Flagstaff and me as a certified public participation professional often use this spectrum of public participation to talk about how we're engaging the public and why, beyond just this room. And this process of updating the regional plan is really interesting because For City of Flagstaff residents, it's an empower process. This plan will go directly to the voters on a ballot, just like the charter changes did earlier this month. For Coconino County, it has more of a collaborative element because this group's going to help pull together the plan, and we're going to send it to the elected officials, the Board of Supervisors, to adopt as a major plan amendment to their comprehensive plan. And so the relationship between the documents and the people in the room has kind of two levels that are all very important, and that gets blended through this process of the advisory committee overall. Very slow to advance. So you as a group are new to being a group, but not all new to the process. But there have been a lot of other partners in helping arrive at this point in preparing for the regional plan update. One of the things we've done is we've had community-based organizations all listed on the side there who have been working alongside staff and our consultant, who is Cascadia Partners, who will be here later this week, to really reach out to, as Lena Fowler called it, all the colors of Coconino County, all the people, all the variety of people who are heavily impacted by planning decisions, but have a lot of barriers to showing up at a meeting like this, to showing up at an open house. And so the CBOs have been doing a lot of outreach where they have been taking planning staff to places we normally wouldn't meet with people. We met actually, Andrea's staff at the youth shelter and trained them on how to do some engagement with youth that they are doing trauma-informed therapy with. We've met with people living in transitional housing. We've met with people who are in a high school Native American and Hispanic Heritage Club and invited them to participate in the process. And in many cases, some of the people we have been meeting with are stepping up to really become leaders on engaging their community in the process. And so this engagement's kind of been going on with them since March, but really even longer than that. And we've been able to achieve some things that if we just paid a consultant and sent staff into the community wouldn't have worked well. Having a fully Spanish workshop where I hired a translator for me is not something the city's been doing on a regular basis. And we're going to do it again next month. And so we really have a lot of opportunities by engaging these organizations differently. That is something staff's been working on the last year. We also had a technical advisory group. You'll see some of our new friends here are also have their names on the technical advisory group. This was a group that was invited by staff based on recommendations from partners in the community, both the CBOs and groups like ECONA, NAU, and we said, who's doing work that really should be part of this because they have some kind of technical expertise or community expertise that's really important for these conversations. And this group had a slightly different purpose. They were reviewing all the work that our consultant was doing in addition to me. So as a project manager, the person the consultant kind of reports to and sends invoices to, I'm reviewing everything they're doing, but this technical advisory group, in addition to the city staff reviews, has also given it an outside look and making sure it makes sense. Does it reflect our community? Is it the right information? Is the story being told in the way that we would understand it? And that's been incredibly helpful and had a lot of interesting conversations about, this is kind of where I said the nerds live, and I'm sure there's plenty of nerds in the room here, but definitely the data nerds were on this technical advisory group, and all the videos of all our discussions are on the website under the tag under scenario planning. So, let's see. So what have we done so far? We've had these groups, we've had some partnerships, we've been getting a lot of feedback from the community. In the fall of last year, we had 11 visioning workshops that were designed to, one, get people filling out a visioning survey and taking different steps, trying to have them understand how we can live, work, and play in our region and make it a sustainable place that lets us thrive together. And we had about 120, 150 participants. We have these in 10 really different locations and dates and times. But we still found that we needed the CBOs to help fill in gaps from this more general public engagement. From this, we heard that the very high expectations of how we treat our natural environment is something that persists for all of our general plan, all of our regional planning efforts. It's a high value in our community. We heard a lot about affordable housing and housing options and how critical that is moving forward in our community's vision, the values we have around community character, the desire for a more multimodal community that helps us get around by biking, walking, and transit in an easier way. And we heard a lot about who we needed to meet in the community who maybe hadn't shown up to the first meeting, hadn't responded to the first first postcard, and we followed up with those groups as quickly and as often as we could. The other thing we heard is there's a lot of desire, much like we wrote in this current regional plan, to make this a document that holds the government of the city and the county accountable to the public, to our communities, and that accountability is really a core value that people wanted to continue to see in the regional plan. Based on that feedback, we put together some reports, we talked to some more people, we pulled in our community-based organizations, we brought in our consultants around that time who were helping us with a process called scenario planning. We'll talk more about that. But our first engagement with the public with them was 13 workshops. We did 5 that were just available to everybody, but then we did some very tight-knit ones that were in places that we didn't usually hold these kinds of meetings. And the way we did this was we actually built a game instead of running a workshop that people would just show up and tell us what was already on their mind. We designed a game that actually forced people to sit down and deal with some uncomfortable uncertainties about the future, which is really an important principle in scenario planning, that you are looking at what if things don't go the way we want them to? What is the most resilient, resourceful, clever position we can be in if we are seeing things get into places where in the future we all would like a nice booming population and plenty of money to build every piece of infrastructure we love, and no more fire and flooding, right? Those are probably the big things. So we built this game around those critical uncertainties and tried to get people to play with, well, what if there's a lot of one of these risks and not a lot of another, or everything's kind of in a bad situation? And we paid attention to how that influenced the way people played growth on the board. So doing this a little differently, we learned that mixed-use development still has pretty strong support in the community. And we hear a lot, planners, I should say, we hear a lot of negativity sometimes about the mixed-use development in the community, but there's still a lot of desire. People took commercial pieces that they were allowed to play in the game. They go, I want those near my house. So interestingly enough, there's still a lot of desire to see us have a mixed-use community, have more amenity and services, and to manage density in the community in a number of ways that people suggested. People talked a lot about a desire for more transit connections and road connections in the community, and also really paid close attention to land protection and the why behind land protection in the community. We used those findings from those meetings to build scenarios. And we actually built one scenario first, so we had something to test. We built a scenario we called our business as usual scenario. Last time we did this, we compared Flagstaff of today to a Flagstaff of the future. We decided this time, staff recommended that we look at what if we just never made any of these hard decisions again, and we stuck with the zoning and the rules we have to play the game of growth by, and we just see how that plays out in the future. So when we look at scenarios at the next meeting, you'll see one called business as usual. And that's really what if we did nothing? It's our no action alternative, essentially. But based on that feedback from those workshops, we said, well, here's some other ways people seem to lean towards or be interested in understanding that growth could happen. And it can happen in our green fields. It can happen in undeveloped lands. It can happen infill in smaller ways in neighborhoods. It can continue to happen along our commercial corridors. So those are the kinds of things that the scenario and having a model lets us build in and then see what it does. We have outcomes and metrics we can look at and compare based on those different strategies. The other thing we did in the last year was we did a pretty well responded to public survey on growth principles, because we heard from the visioning and we heard from the community that had come to the workshops, which was closer to 300 people, we almost doubled, that there are a lot of reasons people want us to be managing growth and things they want to see us do. An important difference we're hoping you will help us make between the current regional plan we have and the one that we hope to have is to set priorities. The current regional plan has 97 goals and 508 policies. And for the last 10 years, it has been up to me and other staff every time someone had a proposal to figure out how to weigh this enormous set of community values against each other. Because I can only think of 2 cases out of all the rezoning and annexation cases we've had that were fully 100% supported by the regional plan. And it wasn't designed for anybody to get 100%, but nobody told me when I got here what the passing grade should be. They said, you'll know it when you see it, which has been a challenge because sometimes I look at it, my staff and my partners look at it and we go, that's 95%. And the community looks at it and says, it's actually 60%. So we need a better way of looking at prioritization. And so we asked the community to prioritize. Actually, there were 28 values that we had heard about through the first 6 months of our engagement. And this is the top 12 that came out of that. They probably are not a fully representative group. The people who respond to this, they're the kind of people who go on and take an online survey without a lot of additional prompting. They're people who are already on our newsletter list or already had a relationship with the CBO. But I think this is an interesting 12. If I were to set a mark for you all, I would say if we got down to 6 goals and like 30 policies, we would be on the right track. We need to really downsize what we're putting into our policy documents, because if you prioritize everything, you prioritize nothing. And our annual reports have actually shown that. Our annual reports have shown that out of the 98 metrics we've been reporting on, only 3 or 4 have moved in a positive direction, and probably a dozen have moved in a negative direction because we didn't prioritize. So prioritization is going to be a really important part of what we're going to keep talking about as a group. We have lots of things in the community are important. What is really the core things and the most important things that we need to be prioritizing when we talk about growth, when we talk about transportation, when we talk about water resources and natural resources? How will we make those trade-offs? So we asked this in order to kind of inform that part of this conversation. We also had a lot of just touch points and availability. We had webinars and open houses over the summer that were really just information sharing. And we've had ongoing tag meetings that we've been posting online and showing to people and asking if they had feedback on them. So all these things we gathered needed to come together into these scenario themes. And then they become what we will post online Thursday as our output scenarios. So these scenarios are different futures for Flagstaff. And they don't tell us everything. But what they do tell us is if our built environment, if the systems that are really get embedded and difficult to change over time are changed in a certain way, it'll make it easier to do some things. And maybe we can mitigate other impacts, but we'll have to spend money and time figuring out how to mitigate impacts if the built environment doesn't support it. So this is where we will go to the public next. And so Thursday, we have an online open house that will be running concurrent to the work that you're starting on and doing for us as a committee. It'll be open for 2 months. We realized, one, it's winter in Flagstaff, and so there's going to be snow. The El Nino forecast looks like there'll be quite a bit of snow. So this is designed to be the kind of open house you can do from your pajamas in your living room. And 2, we're holding just a few public open houses where people come and can participate in person. We hope that as committee members, when we send out what it looks like and how to get, that you'll help disseminate this online open house as well. Our goal is over this 2 months to get about 800 to 1,000 people into the online open house and participating in this step, which we call scenario choosing. So they get to look at all 4 of the scenarios and tell us which one is their preference. Part of this also in our scenario choosing effort, we'll be going back to our CBOs on Saturday. We're hosting an ambassador orientation with them, and they are sending 3 to 2 or 3 people from each of their groups who are going to learn how to run an open house or a focus group built around our online open houses format. And then also to adapt it in a culturally competent way to audiences that need a little bit of adjustment to be able to participate in what we're asking here. So we have both co-design and other things. I think one of these workshop dates I have up here might be changing, but the Spanish language workshop may push back a week or 2 based on the availability of our bilingual facilitators. So these are the kinds of things we're working with the community to build, not just those 2 public open houses, but also targeted opportunities for neighborhoods and communities that are harder to reach.
Sarah,
Yes.
what, go back to that slide, please. What's the plan for the ambassador orientation? That's this Saturday.
Yes.
So essentially, is it to give those community-based organizations what you're giving us tonight?
No, they're getting a very different thing on Saturday. They've been involved all along the way, and they're very informed on just the process overall. This is kind of an overview to catch the committee up, but they're actually going to sit down and learn how to run a workshop. Just like I would or Mark would. They're going to get the skills to do that so that they can go lead conversations in the community. And if they choose to invite staff to participate in those, we can. And if they want to just tell us what they learned from that process and enter things into the
So you
online.
identified specific individuals that are going to be trained.
We identified we let the CBOs identify the individuals they wanted us to train.
Okay.
So.
Thanks.
So now you guys are in the committee. Congratulations. You did a lot of work, so you don't have to. But there's a lot to take in now. It'll be like a little bit of a fire hose for a few months, I think. The work that you have before you is to decide how you're going to work together, to review what we learn in scenario choosing, and also we hope help us draw people into the scenario choosing process so we can understand how these different futures are desirable or not desirable, if they do what we want or if we need adjustments to them. And what we will do is after all that engagement happens, we will bring you what we think might be the preferred scenario based on all that feedback. We'll show you why, we'll show you our data, and then we might have to build something that blends the scenarios together. We might have to send our consultants away with guidance and have them come back. But over time, we'd like that this committee makes the recommendation on which should be the preferred scenario. That will go back to council and the board of supervisors. They will also get to weigh in on that. And then from that scenario, we will build the future growth illustration. If you've ever looked through our current regional plan, there's this map in it that says this part of town is suburban and this is an activity center and this is a corridor, and that's the framework we use is neighborhoods, corridors, activity centers, urban, suburban, rural, employment, and special districts. Is that the right framework for the next 20 years? That's one of our charges here is to say, do we like it? Do we want to adjust it? Is there a different way we want to look at it? So you might want to start looking at how other jurisdictions are doing it. Is there another place you think, I wonder how Reno is looking at this kind of land use framework, or how Phoenix is doing it, or how Tucson looks at this. You might want to do some exploring as we head into, this will kind of be around March, of what else is out there. And I'll try and provide some examples too for you all to look at, because there's a lot of ways to define what is the future growth or future land uses within our community. What I can tell you we learned from the previous efforts is that in 2001, we had a map that was so specific that if you didn't want exactly the thing we put on the map as your future land use, you had to do an amendment. So we were doing a ton of amendments. We did so many, people didn't even track what we were doing. And so there was this desire in 2009 to 2014 of seeing us be more general. But it's so general again, much like our 508 policies, that there were times where someone came in and they said, is my parcel in an activity center or not? Yeah, I think David had to be, once was one of the people who came and asked me that. And I said, well, I guess it's up to me because somebody's got to make the call. So if the committee defers things like that, it ends up being staff's call, and likely whoever is in my position or who's the planning director who has to weigh in on what's in and what's out. So our hope too is that we can look at that again and really think about being very careful in approaching how we do those pieces of the work. You'll also get to see all the different goals and policies we might put into chapters. At some point, I think at the next meeting, I'll give you a list of everything we're required, like the musts that has to be in the plan. And there is a pretty long list of musts. I'll get the checklist done, don't worry. But there's lots of those you're gonna wanna weigh in on. And then there's things maybe that aren't on the checklist that we feel that the plan wouldn't tell a complete story if we didn't also look at this topic or that topic. So what goes in the chapters, what kind of policies we need. My challenge to you is how can we keep it really concise and valuable and keeps the priorities at the top. And then as we get all that together in staff, and we'll hopefully have an outside writer editor helping us, we'll bring you a whole draft plan. You'll get a nice little binder that you'll get to read through, and you can send me a lot of little edits about how many commas I missed if you want. But you'll get to look at a plan and say, yeah, we endorse this to go out to the public, and that means it gets a 60-day public review. After that 60-day public review, if it's just the best plan that the public's ever seen and nobody hates it, we'll just keep trucking along. And if it's not, if we have a bunch of comments that come in that have conflicting values or things we want to take a second look at, we may ask you to come back together and help us work through difficult comments. So that really, it's not staff running off and dealing with comments the way we usually do, but really we'd like your input on that as well. So this is your charge. It'll sort of have a break. You won't have to be convening while we're in that 60-day public review or while we're compiling and coding all the comments for you. But we may ask you to get back together in early 2025. So after, and then the committee will be done. They'll say, the council board of supervisors will say thank you, as will staff, and you'll be available to continue with the process, but also, you know, there's a lot of things I know you probably want to do with your time. So as we work through this effort of setting the stage, getting a framework together that we like, and building a plan, that's kind of the efforts that we'll see ourselves doing in the next 8 to 10 months. That'll result in the draft plan that council and the planning and zoning commissions for the city and the county have to consider. And the way that they have decided to do that this time around is they're going to have a big retreat where they are going to have, just like they do with the budget, the city council and board of supervisors will have like a 2-day retreat, and they will go through the whole budget book. If you think the plan's big, the budget book's like this. So, and they go through it all and they make sure that it meets their desires. They have all their questions answered, that it really addresses all the community concerns. And if they are happy with that and they've got their changes, directed staff on what changes they would like to see, then we'll have a citizens review session. And we will put that together and let everyone come together and weigh in on it before we start public hearings. The city and county then have to have public hearings before things are sent to the ballot. So there'll be all these really procedural steps at that point. Like, you all will have done a ton of work and a ton of vetting to help make sure that when we get to this retreat, it's a really inclusive document that's comprehensive and reflects the community's concerns and desires as best we can as a group. So I attached to your packet a proposed meeting schedule, which I summarized in 2 slides here. And I think Sarah asked me by email, she said, you know, is this like a firm schedule? And I said, no, this is Sarah's first crack at a schedule. This is in a pretty intense schedule, but this is kind of just my guess at the order in which we might need to tackle all of this to be effective. But it is flexible still. So if we start working on major and minor plan amendments and we get to a good stopping point, but we're gonna need to pick it back up later. It's not like this is the only time we will talk about it. So I want to make sure we know that, because we're not going to be able to like put a bow on anything until we've got enough pieces to really understand how they all fit together. If you're writing something about natural resources and then you write something different that conflicts in the land use chapter, we'll have to bring those back together. So we might be looking at some iterations within this, but I wanted to put together something so you get an idea of what kind of order we might be working in. So this is kind of the first 4 or 5 months of work. You'll see we're going to start with a lot of procedures. Who are we? How do we work together? Who do we need partnerships with to be able to understand the material we'll be looking at? And then also, what's in the document? What is the information we have so far that we are going to be considering? And then hopefully by February, we'll actually be dealing into chapters and looking at pieces of chapters or potential policies or policies we want to bring forward from the current plan or maybe change from the current plan. So that's why I said there will probably feel like there's a lot of homework to do in the next few months, because the regional plan website has a lot of materials. We have videos, we have reports for you to start going through. And you don't have to do it all this week. By the time we get to May, we're probably going to start having some more firm materials like a future growth illustration or a future land use map, and really be getting into transportation, implementation priorities, land use. There's some requirements in the state statute that really say we have to bring our land use and transportation decisions together and weave them pretty tightly. There is also a 100-year water supply designation for the city of Flagstaff that we hope we can keep our water resources and planning really tightly woven into our land use decisions. So these are the 3 really major topics that I think we will be going through multiple times. So even though it shows up on the list once, we're probably going to be talking through it more than once. And that's kind of your rough schedule. And before we go too much farther, I know I promised that we would take a break. So people had maybe 10 minutes. So people want to have something to eat, use the restroom, go stretch, we can do that. But before we start a 10-minute break, I'll ask if there are any just questions about what we've done up to this point, what your task is as a committee, what I'm sort of at least laying out before you as an early version of a roadmap, which we're going to get to co-design and adjust together. Thoughts, questions?
I just had a brief question.
Go ahead.
And maybe you've already answered this, but so I'm just considering our tasks moving forward, and you talk about the other committees that have kind of laid groundwork before. So will we be using a lot of their input as well as coming up with some of our own?
I think there will be some valuable things in the technical advisory group meetings. Luckily, we have 3 members, I think, of the technical advisory group who are also here on the committee. 4? Yeah, you're right, 4. And so I think we have some cross-pollination there, and we can reference back. I think what I put down in the agenda we should talk about specifically for homework is that you guys should get really familiar with our regional snapshots, especially the Regional Plan 101. And these are all videos in the tab that's called Regional Snapshots on our regional plan page. And what those were like 15 to 20-minute presentations that we did. And then people asked a lot of questions. So if you watched the first 15 or 20 minutes of each of those, you get a really good primer on the 20 topics we did it on. And that was food systems and water and our sewer system and infrastructure and all of the things that you probably want to have a little bit of a primer on as we get into these discussions. You probably also want to look at the public participation plan so you can see how it all fits together. I think I went over a lot of it in this presentation, but that's a reference guide that I look back at a lot. We didn't do everything we put in the plan, but we did a lot of things or made adjustments to them. And that's probably the big list of things we're hoping you'll at least get the most familiar with. But there's plenty of other resources on the website that are good material to get familiar with. So when we dive into topics like natural resources, you can say, is our baseline good? Do we really understand something? Is there an uncertainty we need to consider? How should we consider it? And that's the kind of thing I think this group will be really effective at discussing and weighing our options in those areas. And I'm gonna pause really quick. Michelle and Kimberly, are there any questions from our online participants?
No, ma'am, all good.
None.
Nope.
All right.
I had a question.
Go ahead.
There's a lot of details in there. Why do we do regional planning at all?
Yeah, Flagstaff is unique because in Arizona, cities and counties don't sit down and share policy documents like this the way we do, which is important because we have a county where 2/3 of all the people who live in Coconino County live in the Flagstaff region. And as John will tell you, by land area, it's a really big county. So we have this really centralized community that is serving not only our county, but a county in either direction, or in each direction, I should say. Yavapai County comes to Flagstaff for services. Navajo County gets services in Flagstaff. And so that recognition, which started back in the 1990s with the work that Ursula Montano did with the regional plan from 2001, really set us up to continue these regional conversations. And the plan itself, when you look at it just from a legal standpoint, has three big purposes, which is it guides rezoning cases, it guides annexation. So when the city gets a proposal to annex a property in the county, if we have a growth boundary, we say we're going to annex these parts of the county if there's willing property owners in these portions of the county, they're going to stay in the county. And so we have agreement on that. It's not like the city is reaching out to the county and grabbing pieces of it. The city is in agreement with the county when we make those choices. So coordination of those is really different than the way a lot of other places do. But we have also chosen as communities to use the plans to inform strategic thinking in both organizations, and zoning code updates are both also required. So every time we did things like the big energy code update that the county did, they look at the regional plan. They say, are these bigger decisions fitting with this long-term vision and all the uncertainties and work that we're going to do to kind of pull that together for the community to consider. Is that helpful? Did I make all the points you wanted?
Yeah, just the future meetings, perhaps better name cards, just so city names, traces.
Yep.
I actually started to do my homework. I didn't finish, but you sent a PowerPoint.
Yep.
And I got about 3/4 of the way through it. But I noticed that PowerPoint was from September 2021. And so I couldn't help but think, what's happened in the past 2-something years?
Oh, well, that's what I just went over.
Well, okay. Okay, it just seemed like the introduction, it just struck me as a long time ago.
Well, also what I noticed about that was that this process has been going on for almost that same amount of time. So we had to start at the beginning, and the beginning happened to just be right around that same period of time. That was my take on it.
Okay. I guess when these first workshops happened a couple years ago, I thought we'd be done by now. You know, so are we behind schedule? I guess that was my real question.
We're a little bit behind schedule. We got a little behind schedule this summer, but we're only about a year behind the schedule we had hoped to be on. So it's not that far. But the piece about that it takes is there's actually like 187 metrics that staff has to pull together and verify. And we also have to reach, not only because this is going to the ballot in the city, we not only have to reach like the 300 people who showed up with meetings, but we have to create something that has reach with the 45,000 voters within the city of Flagstaff. So really, we are, the stretch and reach takes time to do. And it's the relationship part of it that really we've been spending a lot of our time on.
And somebody who sat on the kind of the periphery of the first, or the one that I sat on before, the 2030 version of this, back in 2009 to 2011 and something like that. What I've seen from this process, also from a distance, is the thoroughness that went behind it. Before, it seemed like we were kind of just kind of throwing darts in the dark. And so any length of time that we have to go over, I mean, I think it's kind of justified in my opinion, but I'm no expert.
And I know we want to take a little bit of a break because this will be a pretty long meeting. We're about halfway. Should we take our 10-minute break now?
Yes.
Yep, okay. So for folks online, we're taking a 10-minute break. We'll come back at 6:33.
I just wanted to.
So, we've had 2 members of the committee that have arrived during the 20 minutes I was presenting and getting everybody caught up. So I actually want to start with letting Sarah, who's online, and Julie introduce themselves. When everybody else introduced themselves, which you guys missed, we asked them to say who they are, how they got interested in planning, and something you wouldn't know about you by looking at you. Something interesting that's just not obvious about you on the outside. So I'll give you like a minute to think about it. It's running through your head, I can tell. But Sarah, do you want to start?
Hey,
Or not, up to you.
can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, my camera isn't working. I tried to get it going and I couldn't, so I apologize. So hopefully next time I'll be there in person, so I can see, you can see me better. But anyway, my name is Sarah Aleman, and I am a retired NAU professor. I saw the notice that came out looking for members, and I thought it would be something for me to be a part of. I've lived in Flagstaff for 50 years, and not as long as Abel, I know that. But I've long been interested in how how planning works, and I know it's super important. So I'm hoping to get involved. I know I'm going to learn a lot, but I'm hoping that I can also contribute something from my history here and my background as a member of the community that has been involved with a variety of community activities. And so I don't know what else I was supposed to address.
Well, we can't see you, but is there something you think is unique or interesting about you that people couldn't tell by looking at you?
That people couldn't tell what by looking at me. Yeah. Well, everybody can see that I'm very short, and so that wouldn't fly. But I think that I like to hike. I like to walk. I've been limited lately because I had a knee replacement, but I do still like to hike. And I don't look at athletics, so that's probably something that would be a hidden skill or activity. I also am a retired professor. I like to read a lot, and I have 4 dogs.
Couldn't tell that.
Sarah. So Julie, thanks for joining us. I know you had to be across town doing a presentation too. So welcome.
Thanks. My name is Julie Lee. You can't tell by looking at me, but I am an engineer.
Co-owner of an engineering co-owner of a local engineering firm. I do a lot of infrastructure work for city and county. So I really get to see how the regional plan is implemented. You know, talk about the pyramid. Yeah, from the top of the pyramid. I spend a lot of time in the base of that pyramid in codes and standards and moving projects through the process. I served on the regional plan 2030 version. That was a kind of a marathon of about 3 or 4 years. And I've also served on the Transportation Commission, which I chaired for a couple of years, and the Transportation Tax Commission. So for me, being part of local government and advocating about how our community grows and what our future is here is really important. My area of expertise in engineering is transportation.
Is there
It
anything?
says engineering on your show.
Yeah, I
So-
was
so we
gonna
got-
say.
What do you do?
It's a tough crowd.
So what's something neat about you we couldn't tell by looking at you? See. We designed and built a house, and 100% of our domestic water is from rainwater harvesting. So I have a whole series of tanks and a treatment system, and
Alright.
that's what we use at our house. And I think it's pretty cool.
It's pretty
cool too.
Should be on every house.
Excellent. All right, so I hope everyone had a little snack or whatever you brought with you for your break. We're gonna kind of get into the meat of this meeting now, which is how does this committee want to work together, want to work with the community, want to work with other commissions? I sent you all a working draft of, I called it recommendations and options. As I said at the beginning of the meeting, this group is a working group. So you're not a committee, or you're not a commission or a subcommittee of a commission. You don't have to follow every part of the open meeting law or the board commissions manual, but there's probably a lot of good things in the rules that we use for other kinds of commissions that you'd want to consider including. But we also, as a group, have the flexibility to take things that are less useful and put them aside in the name of moving quickly and getting through this material and not making staff so bogged down with administration that we can't be responsive to the substantive issues we want to be discussing here. So we get this opportunity to have a lot of flexibility by the way things are set up. Al and I were talking at the break, and a good example of that is if you were a commission, we would need to formally produce minutes for these meetings within 24 hours and post them online. Staff's recommendation for that is actually that we not produce minutes. We should just record and create a transcript for all these meetings. If somebody wants to go online and watch them, that's fine. And if we need to go back and watch them to remember what we did 3 months ago or what we talked about, we'll have a much more contemporaneous way of doing that if we're using our YouTube videos than if we're actually having my intern sit down and write 3 pages and
So the public could see all of that as well.
yep, it'll all be posted publicly.
So I got a spot to start.
Sure.
10 people is a quorum. Where'd that come from?
Oh, yeah, so let's not jump there, but we can get through all of that. So
We wanted to move fast, you know.
you want to move that, I know. So I have some overall guiding principles for this process as a whole that I've been using as the project manager. And these came from my after action reviews that I did with people who were on the last regional plan committee. So one of the things they really emphasized was that we have the right people and the right agenda and the right timing. So the draft schedule I sent you is an attempt at figuring out if that will work. And so as Al was saying, there's like quorum rules if you're a commission. Usually it's 50% of your commission size plus 1. So we are a committee of 24 people. Last time, the regional plan committee was about this big and they followed the quorum rules. And there were months where they canceled every other meeting.
Yeah.
And it was an incredibly painful thing to be advertising a meeting and have 11 people show up and you couldn't continue with the agenda. So whatever rules you want to set for a quorum, it might be, this is the topic we wanted to talk about, but it's actually like, we really need to hear from Julie on this. So let's talk about it, but continue it. Like, we don't want to wait to start a conversation, but we might be able to kind of organize our conversation. So the people here who we know need to weigh in, we've all learned a little bit about each other tonight, are present or at least able to contribute to each of those steps. We also can do some small group emailing and some smaller meetings that are not everyone in the committee if we need to be working on things outside of that without setting up formal working groups. We can just say, I want to go more in depth on that. And 5 of us could show up and have a meeting with me and the subject matter experts and bring back more information to the committee. So our ability to make those kinds of moves is much more informal. We can still make sure it's very transparent because that can rely on Mark and I and staff of just being like, if we're having meetings, they're getting posted, people know they're happening, they know who showed up at those meetings, and there's videos so people can see what we're talking about. Even if we're not meeting every little part of open meeting laws or our board and commission manual, because I think the transparency is really important. We also discussed with those after action reviews that the experts and the public, just everyone in the community should be working together. So we want this process to be inclusive in that way. We also recognize there might be times we need an outside facilitator, and I have some flexibility in providing that because sometimes I'm going to be your subject matter expert, and you might not want me also being the facilitator of those conversations, or having whoever we choose the chair and vice chair be the facilitator. But also we want to have some really clear expectations for how this group is going to create a recommendation or endorsement. We'll talk a little bit about how we do that in a typical commission, and I provided some alternative ways of doing it, but there's a dozen ways you can do it. We don't have to do it the way we've always done it. I actually have a coffee mug that I didn't bring tonight, but it says tradition. Just because we've always done it that way doesn't mean it's not stupid. So, or that it works right now. So I carry that around me to remind myself, like, this is the way we've always done it. That might not be a great process for this group with this task. And so I really want us to take a critical look at this working draft, which is merely me just pulling together some of how we've been doing things and what we could be doing. But really, we're co-designing this committee work. It is not up to me, and it is not any one of you that's going to make that call. And I think it'll be stronger approaching it that way. So I wrote up what the role of the committee is, and we've talked a little bit about this. Are there any questions about your role as a committee, either the way I've written it down in our working draft or some of the how-to that I put in there that feels what I put in this document feels pretty typical for staff. It's kind of like what we expect when we hear committee, but it can also be different. And in the printout or the document that I sent out, that's really all on page 2. Sounds about right. Everybody's cool.
There you go.
Am I missing anything? Is there things actually, I think we also have a role in something that we haven't talked about yet.
By the time this is all over, I'll probably have a better answer for you.
We can come back to the beginning at the end. That's a fair ask. So there's a why of why you were chosen, that we have all this space for experts. There should be opportunities for public engagement. We still want to recommend that there be a code of conduct that you adopt as a group. The things we put in the draft code of conduct came mostly out of our boards and commissions manual, but that if you're going to make a statement as a representative of the committee, it'd be something we've all agreed you're going to go to city council and talk about, or you're going to go to the water commission and talk to them about this, and not be things we individually choose to go up and speak on. You can do that, of course, as Abel and Tom and Julie, but not saying, I'm on the committee and we all think. If we just want to be honest and not be misrepresenting each other's stances or what agreement we've come to or not. And that feels fair, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like a Facebook post that says, hey, I joined the committee.
Yeah.
It's fine, but you don't want us to talk about the policy decisions we're making.
Yeah, it's fine to say I'm on the committee. I encourage people to come. The committee's going to be talking to the Water Commission this week. All great things, but when we're speaking as a group, let's make sure we're being really transparent about that. There's also this portion of the Board and Commissions manual that talks about that if somebody goes off and meets with the mayor or the chair or the Board of Supervisors chair one-on-one and talks about what the committee's working on, what I'd imagine, like, what would you all feel like? Hey, what did you go talk to the mayor about? Why didn't you include the rest of us? What was that conversation like? And also it can give the impression that the elected officials who are really going to get a recommendation from this whole committee are getting side information, where you guys, we hope, are able to come together as a group and offer, a community-based process and consensus on what's important. So that's just another best practice that comes out of our Board and Commission manual that we think you should consider. You're not obligated, because you're not commissioners, to not accept gifts, but whenever you're here in a representation of the public, we ask people to be really mindful of gifts. Buying each other a cup of coffee is great. And if somebody offers you free tickets to a Beyonce concert, maybe think about it for a second.
A trip on a yacht.
Or like tickets for a raffle that could win $1,000 prize. Like some of those things, I'm a public employee, I have 20 years public experience. All those things kind of set off, favorism in my mind. But if you work in the public sector, we just like to raise people's awareness of it, because there's a lot of different cultures around gift giving. And this is just an important thing to make sure we have same expectations about. Another piece is at some point, because you're on a committee that's doing important work for the community, somebody from the Daily Sun or Dave Zorn from Cap Radio might give you a call and say, hey, what do you think about what the committee's meeting on next week? Or that last committee meeting, I heard there was a big disagreement about something. And, it is often good to let me know if you're getting immediate contact. I've been a liaison for the Heritage Preservation Commission for the last few years. And every once in a while that's happened where they said somebody from the Daily Sun called me, and sometimes people are very excited to talk to them and sometimes they're not, but it's good to have some idea of, what the rules might be, or if you've got media training or don't, we'd be happy to talk with you about it and help you understand what it might look like.
So aside from letting you know, are you asking that people don't talk to the press?
No, I couldn't tell you that, to not talk to the press. I just say if you would check in with us, we could make sure you're not getting caught unawares, or, at least provide some background information.
Might ask you to go with me.
Yeah, well, I could go with you. Yeah, I do. Or Melissa could go with you if you wanted to also have a staff person present. That's the kind of thing that we can help with, because sometimes it's really comfortable. Everybody's got a different level of comfort with these things.
On that, if we state that we're speaking for ourselves, not the commission.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you have a radio show, so.
Yeah, okay.
You kind of are here and you're having media opportunity, but same thing. If you're on your show and you are talking about the committee, be mindful of how you're doing it, and because you're here with the rest of us and we have to have a team decision-making process that you guys are all comfortable with, and let's you all be respectful of each other.
Rest assured, I won't be talking about it. I'll have a guest do that.
Yeah, you'll invite a guest to that. Excellent, and that's exactly what we need. Other questions on that, I can of course get Sarah Langley to help, who's our communications director. And she'd be, or she's our public affairs director with a background in communications. She can help with those kinds of things as well. Anytime the committee wants to issue a verbal or written communication to council or the board of supervisors, you all could send a representative or send a letter or send it via me to those bodies. That's kind of another piece so that you can decide how you want to approach that together in an open place where everybody gets to hear what's happening. Any other thoughts on conduct? I know John and some of you have a lot of experience, Julie being on commissions or any commissions. They've been the Heritage Preservation Commission chair before. Any other practices or things that you think help keep our group transparent and working well together, and you know, being really mindful of the public trust that happens when you're in a room like this?
One thing about that, for you as a planner, you understand this extremely well. And we've had discussions at the Planning and Zoning Commission at the county level about this in the past. And it's a problem because we're a relatively small county outside of the city. And one of the people that I work with a lot said, well, I know almost everybody. So when you look at it that way, and in my case, I have had to recuse myself, not for what is in state statute that requires recusal, but simply because of what it would look like. The perception is very important and has been to us at the county level, that if there is anything that would indicate favoritism in any way, it's best to recuse yourself. It is basically the same way that your planner's ethics would look at it. Avoid any perception that would indicate to the public that you are not adhering to the rules that you agreed to in performing your duties on this committee or any other board, commission, or very much like staff does.
Thoughts on that? On having something added about recusal if you feel there's any perception that you're engaging, that you could be engaging in favoritism or financial gain?
Yeah, and to that end, I will tell you that having been in the DC area a long time ago, back when the Kennedy administration was there, Joe Kennedy was often quoted as saying, perception is reality. And I look at it that way when it comes to the way people view what I do in the Planning and Zoning Commission, along with other members of the commission, same thing.
I like that sentiment, and I mean, if we could add that to it, I think it sums up a lot, takes care of a lot of the work for us.
It's sort of like a red flag times 100, right? So if you are down anyway, that's, if you have to ask a question, you're already asking the question. It's already a red flag. That's kind of what we did too. This one, yeah, and of course that the many part of the public view us and anything other than what we're really trying to do. So.
And a rule of thumb that I've always kind of used for myself personally is just, I'm involved with so many different committees and have been, and been here my whole life. So I know so many people besides just the committee work that it's kind of an art when you're dealing with things in public around. I really don't ask, or I mean, I really don't talk about too many things that I'm involved with unless I'm asked directly.
Other thoughts? Anything from folks who are online, Kim and Michelle and Sarah?
Nope. I'm fine, thanks.
All right. It's a pretty basic code of conduct, but I think we'll feel it out as we go. So another thing that is important is how do people know we are having these meetings? You know, we had a couple observers come tonight to meet us and decide, you know, their interest in the work of the committee is here. Our staff recommendation is that we notice this meeting always on the regional plan webpage, which we're really driving all the traffic to, that the city and county can put it on their website. The city website now has like a little calendar feature, and we'll add all of these meetings to that calendar, so the week before it'll kind of show up right on the front page, and people will know how to get into the meeting on Zoom or other places. And that the agenda and packets be posted to our website, just like we would if you were on a commission, no later than 24 hours in advance of the meeting. So that would mean that 24 hours ahead of the meeting, I'm locking the agenda, and things that come up that weren't on the agenda, we will agendize for the next meeting. And hopefully we'll be meeting frequently enough that won't feel like a huge delay, but something might come up. But just be mindful not to like get into a 30-minute conversation about something that's really not on the agenda. And that just helps, because then the public doesn't go, I heard you talked about this, I didn't see it on the agenda. That's another trust piece. We're also going to provide some flyers and the newsletter and some other ways that this will be advertised over time. So is there anything about noticing and advertising of these meetings that you want to ensure is happening or want to talk to us about?
Are you gonna shoot for some regularity? Are we gonna be looking at like Tuesday nights, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit. There was no particular date or time when I sent out the doodle where absolutely everyone could make it work. So,
Yeah.
you know, there's people who can't make Thursday nights work, can't make Tuesday nights work, can't make Wednesday nights work. So I actually think we need to have a little irregularity in the schedule, but we need to publish the meeting dates far ahead of time if that's the strategy we're gonna go with.
You had a list of dates up there, and
Yeah.
without a calendar, I couldn't tell what, you know, how those are distributed throughout the week. But the reason I bring up Tuesday is that quite often that's council night. And people want to go talk to council at the same time. It could be a conflict, so.
Yeah, and it's Tuesday and Wednesday were the best two nights.
Okay.
But the problem with Wednesdays is all the planning and zoning commission meetings and the heritage preservation commission meeting
Sure.
are all Wednesdays. So the staff, we had to staff Wednesday nights over and over and over and over again. So it can be hard to have the planners here and John, who's serving on the county planning and zoning commission. 3 out of 4 Wednesdays of every month are booked. And we just can't, we only have like 5 or 6 planners in each of the city and counties, so we just can't be in that many places at once. So there's kind of like 5th Wednesdays and 1st Wednesdays that we can pull together on that. But Tuesdays work for a lot of folks, but sometimes it won't work for us too, because we have things on council agenda.
Sure.
So if there's other days people want us to look at, we can talk about that. The next 2 days I'm going to propose for meetings for us are going to be December 6th, which is a Wednesday, but it's a Wednesday that doesn't have any planning commission meetings on it, I believe. And then January 30th, so we'll have kind of a holiday break for you guys to catch up on homework and get questions answered. It'll also let us finish scenario choosing and bring you the findings of that at your 3rd meeting. But then after that, how would you like me to set the schedule, I guess? Do you want me to keep the Tuesdays and Wednesdays, offer some more variety than that?
I like those 2 days, and I thought about that too, Al, because I often participate in city council. So if you guys see an earpiece in one ear, I'm not jamming out to the latest tunes on iTunes, listening to the council meeting to know when I can run outside and do my little 3-minute speech.
Well, in council, I have to say, at least city council has been, I would not say ending their meetings early, but we've had fewer meetings this year that went till 10 p.m. or 11 p.m., which council, staff always talks about having, you know, people don't come in early on Wednesday mornings around City Hall or county offices because sometimes they're up pretty late.
So maybe I could suggest, you have the meeting, the topics up there, for your February meeting 4 and 5. The sooner that you could come up with dates and get them out to us, then, you know, some of us can say yeah or yay or nay, and maybe we won't make a particular one, or we'll, you know, I just guess the sooner that we have actual dates for those, the better.
So would you all like me to just put together a date proposal? Just stretch out into July, find all the dates that would probably work.
Better you than me.
And then if there's a topic you really need to weigh in on, you feel like I am on this committee to talk about this in particular, and it's a date you cannot make it, then let me know. And I try to move it around. So how about I'll send out like a version 1 of a schedule between now and August. Ask for your feedback and then send out a final.
I want to ask a question about that.
Sure.
So to me, that seems extremely labor intensive on staff. And I feel like there's enough people here to where we could make quorum on the nights that we can make it and we can't make it. We could always zoom in. I don't want to put more of a burden on staff for these little minute details when I really want them to work hard on the process itself. But that's just my
Is there a reason you didn't pick Mondays or Thursdays, since Tuesdays and Wednesdays are the city season, or city and county?
There are a ton of conflicts for the people on the committee on Mondays and Thursdays.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is just a ton of dates, and sometimes Mondays don't work for me too.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I don't know why, but I actually was thinking like Thursdays would be perfect, but it really doesn't work for most people. You know, I think everyone on this committee is very involved in the community, and you have a lot of other things you're doing besides this, and that's just, apparently Thursday is a popular night for not talking about planning.
planning in other departments for sure.
Yeah.
The day before the
So
weekend.
I am always talking about planning, so I don't know what that's like.
I fully support you just putting a calendar out there, and even just push it to my calendar, send out the calendar invites, and let me spring.
Okay.
I mean, advance notice way into 2024, that's perfect.
Yeah. I
That
would
would-
I want us to circulate it at least once internally before I post it to a website.
Sure.
Because I just don't want there to be any major thing where like 10 of us are on vacation all at the same time, you know?
On that note, and it might not matter for a large number of folks in this room, but can you look at the FUSD schedule?
Yes, I always do that because it affects me too. How many people have an FUSD schedule effect? Couple of us? Okay. All right. Anything else on notice, schedule, postings? All right. The next piece is probably a really important one, is your public comment process. So at a board or commission meeting or city council meeting, they often have like an upfront, anybody can come and talk for 3 minutes about anything they want. That's an option you could have. Sometimes we could have it at the end of the meeting where we say, come and listen to the meeting, and if you want to talk for 3 minutes at the end, you can talk at the end. We could have pauses where we ask for public comment. You guys could run focus groups and workshops during the meeting. There's a whole host of ways you could allow for public engagement from people like the observers who came tonight to happen during your meetings. I personally, and this is just my recommendation, stay away from having to come and talk about anything for 3 minutes at the beginning of the meeting. Because sometimes people get a bee in their bonnet and they bring some friends, and that's 30 minutes of your meeting. And if we'd like to keep these meetings to, you know, no more than 2 hours most of the time. Maybe we'll have some 3-hour ones like this, as we're getting to know each other if we're in a really meaty topic. But you know, this is something we could really be flexible on. I put down in the yellow here, in our document, just how it would be done if we were following something that was very typical. But we could just say we only take written comments as a committee.
Yeah, I mean, I like that idea of taking written comments and then being distributed to the, you know, so that there is an opportunity for people if they want to say something to the group, if they're able to do it. But I mean, you have, you know, I mean, you showed us just how much work you've done, right? Years and years of, you know, of community outreach, which is public participation and all that stuff, right? And that we're a working group, not a.
All right.
Or an outreach.
Yeah, I'll add to that a little bit. I think written comments would be quite appropriate for what we were doing. And I'm going to relate to you how this didn't work with the Donny Park Area Plan Committee. Public
There's value
comment.
in knowing what hasn't worked.
Boy, I've had a dose of that. It's, well, we'll leave it at that. Anyway, the problem that we had with public comment was that it turned into a question and answer session between the committee and the public. How do I put in for a conditional use permit? What kind of setbacks do I need for the garden shed in my backyard? How many horses can I have if I have 2.5 acres? That sort of thing. And the amount of delay, dissension sometimes, and then the problem of committee members actually responding to those questions when they were posed. Really, well, it was one of the reasons why we were a year past our normal completion date, or expected completion date with that. So written comments are quite appropriate. It may be possible to find a way for committee members to respond to some of those if they are on point. That we rely on staff for.
Well, and we have, I will say this, like city and county staff, we have processes, we have pre-application meetings and a community development counter. And if people have questions like that, we should send them to our offices. That's where we answer those questions.
Right. Some people do not give up on that. And here's the other part of it. The co-chair and the chair, it is their responsibility to keep that on point and say, that is a question you should forward to you at the city or at the county. And that is not appropriate to what we are doing here. We did not successfully manage that Donny Park area plan. And there are a number of other reasons I'm not going to go into for that occurring also. But suffice to say, that some of those kinds of questions are purely for the purpose of monkey wrenching sometimes.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I thought Susie had her hand up. Did you have something?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I don't know how much of a disaster this might be and how much you might avert it, but it seems one reasonable way to proceed would be if you want to talk to us, get 2 of us to propose it to and get approval from the chair. And then, so 2 of us ask the chair, please allow so-and-so to talk about this. And she can talk to you, city staff, and we can probably filter out 90% of the what things we're talking about.
To make a little process.
Pardon?
To make a process out of it. I like that.
I like that, but I want to go back to what you said about appropriate. This is not appropriate to what we're doing. That word right there can confuse people, and they can have a perception of if they're, whether or not they're inappropriate or appropriate. So I think it probably should be a little more eloquent than this, but it's not my department. Is kind of, you know, where my feeling is that's not something I know, here's an expert, here's a link to an expert. And like you said, pass it on to somebody that, it's like, yeah.
The way
I'll
that,
have something to add.
So
Okay.
I agree with you that, that it makes more sense to not open the meeting with the ramblings of the general public. However, it looks to me by what you have on the chart up there, that there are specific topics. Those topics being published in advance would attract people that are interested in that particular topic. Is there gonna be a staff presentation of some kind on each one of those topics at that meeting? And if,
Yeah,
and if there is, that may answer the public's question before, so take the public's comments after the presentation.
Fair enough.
My
Yeah,
suggestion.
my intention is that each of these meetings, you get some kind of working document
Yeah.
from me that includes pieces from what we pulled together all through the website and the engagement so far that seem really important for the committee to help us weigh in on how to address it. And then we'll do a little presentation so everybody can kind of hear it verbally in case they didn't read the packet. And then, yeah, then we could take those kind of things after a presentation. John.
Oh, I was just gonna
Like,
say something about appropriateness and the use of the words is okay within this committee. But I've spent a lot of time directing people and helping them out without ever using the word appropriate. And as some people sometimes have put it, I'm not there to educate them either. And I've had some very nice letters and emails back from people saying, thank you very much, because it just got us to the right people and we got a resolution to the question we had. And it goes back to written comments again. We have a limited time frame. Our past experience with this is that when we get off track and run past the time frame that we have to meet, the required time frame, that pay particular attention to it. That's why I say, whoever the chair and co-chair are, they've got a difficult job in keeping things on track. We do this at the Planning and Zoning Commission by reminding people that when they comment, that it has to be pertinent to the case that we are discussing. And if you have a comment, that's where the public comment period at the end of the hearing is. And then if you want to tell us the moon is made of green cheese, you've got an opportunity to do it.
Pertinent to the situation, that's it.
But the civility and courtesy have to be primary goal when you're dealing with that.
Anthony, and then I think Tom had his hand
Yeah,
up.
I'm just listening to everybody, really was impressed with the idea of taking written comments. I think, for one thing, if the drafter of the written comment can make a complete coherent statement without any time constraints or whatever, and then we can take it away with us and consider it thoughtfully after. So I like the idea of written comments.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, we took a written comment for a while on the Heritage Preservation Commission during COVID. I really liked it for that reason, because you got something that was much more, coherent and understandable. And then you could take your time as well to digest it and think, how is this going to impact what I'm going to say at the meeting or the decision I'm going to make, as opposed to, I just heard someone, what do you call them, Alan, incoherent rambling? I just heard 3 minutes of incoherent rambling, and now I've got to make a decision on it 3 minutes later, right? Like, it's not all that.
Anthony, do you have something you wanted to add to this?
Yeah, just briefly, I fully support the idea of written comment to the max. But one thing I will say about public comment is, for better or for worse, if it wasn't for public comment, I wouldn't be here today. So I mean public participation, not comment necessarily. So if there was, I don't know how you put this into the plan, or if it's just something that we could have intuitively, but if there's a way that we could at least let the visitors introduce themselves, so that way they feel part of it. There was one person, we can talk about it outside the meeting because it'll take too long, but the story is a beautiful story. And if it wasn't for this one person I felt kind of rejected by everybody because I wasn't part of the crew, and they kept me involved because they saw that, and it made my life better because of it.
Nice.
So what I've heard so far is based on what I'll kind of start from what I'm thinking of at the top of the agenda, that we do the roll call. We allow visitors to introduce themselves, and if there's 50 people here, we just say, if you'd like to introduce yourself to the committee, you can come forward and do it. I think we had to open up the back room over there, and we really generated a lot of excitement. You know, sometimes when planners have a full meeting, we think it's a bad thing, but it's a good thing sometimes. And then, you know, have some rules for when and how you provide us written comment. I already have set up a regional plan committee at flagstaffaz.gov email. So there's a box that specifically the comments can come into. And I can make that just forward all of those as a batch to you instead of sending you individual emails. So I've kind of got that part of it set up. But, you know, also then after the staff presentation might be a time you could elect to allow public comment if there's a desire to do that. And maybe you can make that call the day of based on, we had a lot of written comments about this topic, and we'd like to allow 20 minutes for, you know, people to get up and make additional statements or something like that. You could time limit it.
That's good.
And have people sign up and say, you know, we have 20 minutes and everybody gets 2 minutes and there's 10 slots. And, you know, and if you don't get one of the slots, you can still provide us a written comment. And that can kind of time control. And then, yeah, I think as you said, deciding what is a pertinent topic versus, you know, something that needs to be given to staff to go manage and redirect and follow up on. It can also be the case. You know, I don't anticipate this group will have an extremely high attendance by the public, but there'll probably be times we're doing something that gains a lot of interest. But there may be people who watch the video and go, hey, I actually have something to add that you didn't talk about. So you may also, if we focus on written comments, get comments after you've already had your discussion. So that's one thing I'd say is if you get those, you may want to reconsider something, and we can have some conversations about that as well. But I'll try and write up kind of what I think this could look like and bring it back to you for the next meeting. Is there any other element of public comment and the methods we might use to collect it or engage people as a committee?
I'll just say, I like that very much, and I'll withdraw my suggestion to get 2 of us, because we all write it, and if 3 of us read the written comment and say, yeah, let that person come, we can do that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, repeating ourselves in the meeting.
I just wanted to make sure you do a time limit to the introduction, like less than a minute.
Okay.
Just a question about the people introducing themselves. Will there be people online also to introduce themselves? I don't know if they'll be able to talk.
Today, we had 2 people join online, kind of dropped off, who were not committee members, but so there could be. We will always make this a hybrid option because, you know, winter. I should say too, that if this room we're in is where the snow emergency operations center is. So if it's snowing bad enough that there's a snow emergency operation, this will become a fully virtual meeting where I'm not going to be able to reschedule us at the last minute.
And I could have killed 2 birds with one stick.
We're all going to be having hot cocoa on a snowy day during an El Nino season. So, you know.
Except for me, who will be plowing the streets.
Except you might be plowing. Which is very important too, but you can listen to us on the earbud, right?
Right, that's right.
Safety first, I won't tell somebody that you might do that. All right, I'll try and pull that together, a new version of that section. We are on to quorums, recusals, and resignations, which is an interesting list of things, but you know, 24 people have said they will be a part of this. You know, and the typical way is if, you know, you could ghost us, I guess, if you just stopped showing up for 6 to 8 meetings and we wonder why we never see you. But, you know, the group was selected because the 24 people on this committee are really represent different neighborhoods and different experiences and different industries and different work experiences and knowledge. And so all of you are very important to the conversation. We've already agreed that you don't all have to be here every time. But we don't want some voice to be lost because somebody gets busy or somebody's life circumstances change or they have a family emergency. And so how many of you need to be here before I cancel a meeting or reschedule it is a question. Like I said, it would be 13 of us if we followed the handbook rules, but it was very explicit when council and the city and county manager set you up as a committee, that they didn't want us. They wanted it to be something less than that because they were very mindful that lots and lots of meetings got canceled last time instead of at least some work getting done. Because every time we're together and staff has prepped something, we can get some work done. Maybe we can't finish it if there's not enough of us, but we can at least make some progress, right? So it could be that if there's not a quorum, we don't finalize anything until there is a quorum. It could, but we still get work done. It could be that we set a bar of, you know, I picked 10, which felt like a third of us are here at least. But it's really up to all of you to kind of give me feedback on what you would like that to look like.
I've got to say that I questioned the 10 members for a forum when I read this initially. But looking at it and thinking about it, I can see the point of making it 10. And this agrees with my experience over the years. One of the things that delays things is the fact that you have a set, an arbitrary quorum, which typically would have with an appointed commission or board that follows the open meeting law. In this case, we don't have to do that. So you can make it 10. The problem has been with some of these that people don't tell staff that I'm not going to be on the commission anymore or the board. You go for months and you never see them. You don't know how many people are there. But to pick a number when you have people that are probably a little more dedicated than some of the people we had. Again, I'm going to use zoning park as an example. The commission, the original committee was almost the size of this one, but they were not a group of people like I have heard from at this committee meeting who have been participating in the community in numerous ways for a number of years. And I think if you have 10 constituted quorum, all well and good. Now there's another aspect to it. You don't have a quorum, but you could still engage in discussion about what you are working on without decision making. This is like a study session works. The county study sessions work a little differently than those of the city. At the county level, study sessions, sometimes we've had study sessions where we get maybe 2 out of 8 members on a commission. But that doesn't stop the discussion. We can't take any action in a study session anyway, but that is an example of how to go forward with this if you are short of the quorum. Doesn't stop you from discussing it. The other thing is, of course, staff has a little bit of responsibility here too, and that people are probably going to call you and say, what did everybody talk about when I wasn't there?
Yeah, I'll forward them a video link. That's my answer.
There you go.
There are 5 people who weren't able to make it tonight, and I said, don't worry, I'm gonna send you the video link. So I think that's really key. You can get caught up if we at least have the discussion, and then we can agendize it to finalize at the next meeting when everybody can make it or more people can make it.
Does that imply no quorum, actual quorum at all then? And it's, when, you know, and then any number of people show up, we do a study session and kind of hunt to the next one.
Because we still need a quorum for a vote. I guess. How many people have to be here?
Yeah, if you're gonna make a recommendation or endorse the draft plan, I think we do want a minimum number of people here. And what is that, what do you think that right number is? Should it be 13 or 14 of you? Susie, what's that?
I sort of think it'd be good to have a quorum, but low, like you're suggesting. Because I think that, you know, so if you have a just discussion, well, then when you do have a quorum, then the whole rest, everybody else has to get caught up and give their input. So it's like having the meeting all over again. So I'd rather go and just say, let's 10, that's fine for a quorum, and then we can keep things rolling that way.
And if it doesn't work.
Well, so I don't know where this number of 10 is coming from. So in my mind, the way I think, I try to make like,
Invented it.
I like,
That's easy.
yeah, I like to make
Restricted.
predictability that come to things like from a theoretical aspect. So my idea after listening to what John had said about possibly declining numbers over time is, can we just do it with 1/3 of the registered members? And then if that number changes, then it'll come, then that third will also change.
And so then if somebody officially resigns, they send me or Melissa Shaw an email and says, I can't continue on, I'm moving, or whatever, all the life events that happen that, you know, make everyone who shows up committed, have something else happen over an 8 or 9 month period, then we'll take them off the roster. There'll be a resignation. What if somebody just stopped showing up? And you
Do
don't
we
see
say
them?
a minimum max of meetings that you miss?
Yeah, you want a
We've done that
minimum of
before too, so.
Yeah.
Tom had an idea about, I think the last,
I think it was the same as yours, that we use a fraction.
okay.
I think Tina's idea about having a minimum or, you know, number of meetings, if somebody has not come for 6,
This is
7, or
so
whatever that number is.
It's not just to fill the clerk or something, we're setting a plan for years. So our last committee, we set a minimum. So if you miss X amount of these meetings, you're automatically out. And the importance of that is we're gonna be setting the tone that we have to continue these conversations with the people that are in this room. If you drop even one person, it affects something. Right? So if they don't want to participate, that's fine. Like you said, there's life things that happen. But if they're just not gonna show up, then they need to be.
As an example, I'll give you state statute for an appointed board, commission, committee, says that if you miss 3, you are no longer by law a member of that board, committee, or commission. This came up in some discussions I had with community development. Problem is I hang around with too many attorneys that brings these things up. But anyway, that just gives you an example of how it works. And that was one of the things I thought about when I looked at, well, what do you do about it when somebody doesn't show up? And they don't tell you about it as staff. You or Melissa. That can cause problems. By the way, the other
School, they
thing.
call that an unexcused
Yeah.
absence.
Yeah.
Parents know, it's when your kid just doesn't show up.
One other thing about bringing a quorum down to a third, 10 out of 24 is approximately 42%. So reducing it just a little more to 33% isn't a big jump, but that may make it work out in the future.
How many meetings are we gonna have total?
Count. Kim has something to add. Let me count. And Kim online has something to add to the discussion, and then I will count how many meetings. I think, yeah, it says 14 to 14. So 3 would be like almost 25%. You miss about 1/4 of the meetings if you miss 3.
I would like that threshold to be as low as that. And but I would also like there to be a caveat in case there was, somebody that really wanted to be here, but they had COVID twice in the same 3 weeks. That they could, if we reached out to them after missing 2 meetings and they came back with a good reason, then we'd hold their spot for them.
We'll call them like three, if I call them like three unexcused
There
absences
you
or
go.
three unexplained
Yeah.
absences.
Yeah.
Where, yeah, like if if you lose a close family member, you might be out for 6 weeks.
Sure.
Or if you
Yeah.
fall off a front loader.
Absence
Well,
without
we're all adults
notification.
here, so I think you
Yeah.
can say ghost us throughout.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean.
because it's possible. I've done it before myself.
So,
We've all had something happen once couple of years.
Kim had something to add about a quorum. Do you want to jump in, Kim?
Hey, Sarah. Yeah, I just said that the quorum should be an odd number in case of a vote. So whatever the number is, I was thinking 11 or 13.
Very good.
Yeah. I'll work up some math on that, 11 or 9.
So
Yeah.
the 33% plus one person.
33%.
If it falls on
plus
an,
one
if
is
it
an
falls on an
even
odd number.
Yeah. The 33% right now is an even number, so plus one would be 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, good enough.
I'm making a note on that one. You guys gonna make me do algebra every That's right, I love that. So, and if we don't have a quorum, we can still have a discussion if those present want to have a discussion.
Yes.
Okay.
Very good.
That's fair enough. Okay. I have some recommendations about subgroups. You guys can decide that we didn't finish a conversation and 3 or 4 of you want to keep meeting on it in between now and the next meeting to keep progress going.
So can you publish a contact list with emails and phone numbers?
Yeah. Would you guys want me to put, you don't want me to put
To
this in
us.
public, but just send out?
Yeah,
all
to
of
us.
them? Yeah. I think that the other key to that is if you're emailing with each other, please copy me and Melissa.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, because if you'd like to do that, like we don't want you to have, what do they call them? Conversations that are happening outside the meeting, but if we were to come to a meeting and we were talking about open space and we didn't get to agreement on something, the chair or vice chair could say, how many people want to have this discussion in a small group setting between now and our next meeting?
Yeah.
And 5 of you can volunteer, get together over those 2 weeks, and then come back and say, here's what we talked about and here's what we recommend we do based on the conversations we've had. That's kind of the process I would envision, because that lets you guys keep working with us, lets you keep meeting with staff.
And it prevents conspiracies.
Yeah, it prevents conspiracies. No conspiracies is one of our code of conduct rules.
Or another way to put it is no collusion at the poker table.
No collusion at the poker table, that's right. It's an open-handed game.
Sir, I'll tell you, that was one of the things that worked with the Yoni Park area plan, was the subgroup committees. And they provided a lot of good input and took a lot of contentiousness out of it when the people said, I want to work with so-and-so and so-and-so on this subgroup. And they got there, it was all work. It came back to the committee, worked very well.
Yeah. And that to be a really good way to keep us on track, right? Because we want to have 14 meetings and not 18 meetings.
Yeah.
Yes, everyone nods, correct. That's what we want. All right. If that's pretty easy for me and Melissa to set up and manage. We'll, be able to kind of pull that together as needed. So I put together an agenda for today and sort of based it on the way we do commission meetings, but our meeting format could be pretty flexible. If we had something we really were digging into and we absolutely didn't think we could resolve it as a committee, you could ask us to run a focus group or a workshop, or you could help us run that. There's a lot of opportunity if we get stuck to use a lot of different public participation techniques to get ourselves unstuck. That's another advantage of being a working group and not being a commission or a subcommittee. So I just kind of put language in there that said, we at a meeting can decide if you guys want to do something different next time. We actually need to have roundtables with some people we all need to invite, so we're hearing more than just our own voices. I want to make sure you guys have the flexibility to pitch that at a meeting.
I hope everybody's got a sense of humor, but I have told the Planning and Zoning Commission that we operate there in a similar manner, and I call it the ad hoc rules of order.
Okay.
I like it. Ad hoc is cousin to ish.
Yeah.
Those perfect words.
Flexibility.
Yep. So then the last thing we really need to talk about in these is how you want to come to consensus. For those of you with commission experience know Robert's Rules of Order, which were of course invented in Prescott, Arizona, are a proud Northern Arizona tradition.
I would like to start this with a question for you.
Sure.
I want to know how you define consensus, because I looked at the origin of the word all the way back to the 16th century and some of the common definitions of it. And I think that leads to what we're going to discuss for everything but Robert's Rules of Order and how we evaluate it. So I want to hear from you.
Sure. I feel the way I look at consensus is that, you know, and I've run a lot of different kinds of consensus processes over the years, is that we come to an agreement where Deb Harris, our council member, always says, not everybody walks away with all the marbles. But we all feel like we had a really good discussion and we landed somewhere everybody can walk away feeling that it's not just good enough, but good work together. To me, that's how a working group builds consensus. What they're really going for is, and it's harder, right? Because it's not just I got what I want, but it's I have a positive feeling about how the group arrived at this answer.
Okay, one other point about that. It sounds like you're talking about what is more like general consensus. Not everyone agrees. Some people sometimes define it as unanimity,
right?
Which is literally impossible. I think consensus is going to be a lot easier with this group based on just my initial impressions of how everything is working so far, which is really good.
Right. I think 24 people coming to unanimity will be very hard sometimes and super easy other times, right? We're all part of this community. There's a lot of shared values in Flagstaff. So it could happen pretty frequently if we're working well together, but you know, I have a sociology background, so you always have to be careful if you're agreeing too much, you could also be doing it wrong, right? You could have a groupthink problem where we've all like gotten into each other's heads enough, we're not asking enough critical questions. I think we've got a lot of critical questioners here, so.
I'd like to say one other thing about this relative to consensus. One of the things that I am here for, being from the county, is that, and this has not been a problem in the past, make sure that our comprehensive plan, because it's compatible with what is developed with the regional plan, because the regional plan is adopted as an amendment to the county's comprehensive plan. So, and the other problem that complicates that is there's some rather diverse interests about relative to this out in the county. I get out do site visits all over the county, have for years. So I understand some of the divergence of opinion that exists about things like this. I have to be maybe the person who is being the bad guy occasionally when I say, well, I'm not sure this will work with the comprehensive plan, or I'm much more inclined to say, yes, this will work. I think we can do that. That's one of the reasons why I'm here.
The 5 thing is a really good idea and a way to move towards some consensus if it doesn't happen.
Yeah, so I put these 3 techniques we could use for group decision making. They're all like in facilitation. These are all considered a consensus approach. That Robert's rules is trying to get to a majority kind of consensus, which some people believe is a consensus. This divide is just trying to feel out how strong or weak our feeling is. It's a little more like, you know, it's either agree or strongly disagree scales for meetings. And then, you know, the will live with decision making gives you kind of a different breadth of it. And I sometimes like I will live with too. I'll speak to that one because maybe we haven't yet, but you know, what I like about I will live with decision making is usually you go around a room and everybody has to say their affirmative statement. And I think there's kind of a psychological benefit to saying like, I will live with this decision. I will support this decision. And also to be very respectful when people are not at that place yet and say, well, if you can't live with it, tell us why, tell us more, what's missing, what's needed to bring everyone to that kind of decision making. I've seen that work in teams that have taken that on. I've seen it Fist to 5 work. We did that with the Southside group. And then we all kind of know how Robert's rules works, which that can be very formal and it's majority rules, but it's also kind of the public expectation when they come to a committee or a commission meeting. And it is a way of running a very civil dialogue. It's really built around civility.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason.
So you go around the room.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say, and I mean, I've used all of those now, except for the I can live with it one, which I really liked the look of. I think because like Tony was saying, it's a like Fist to 5 plus. When we did the South Side, it was a bit too easy to just go along with stuff. And like my biggest hope for this, you know, working group and for the regional plan in general is that we could keep it concise. And so I kind of want to see a process that we use that allows us to really want to have something in there, not just like at my homeowners association meeting where it's like, oh, I'm just I just give up and, you know, whatever, right? And then you get the worst possible decision.
Yeah.
So.
Diane and then Tina and Tom, it's like, okay.
I'd like to throw my support for the will live with decision. Spent the last 15 years in forced collaboration situations. And it's too easy for people to be, at least in those, even with codes of conduct, disruptive and not constructive. And so I like very much the way that this requires somebody to put skin in the game and say, not only, you know, what it is they don't like, but also articulate what it is they may want. And so I just think that's a really good way to come about a decision.
That's a good point.
I just wanted to ask you, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I saw what the definition was for that, but in your mind, do you have another way to explain it to me so I could?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
The
What we'll live with?
Yeah, the will live with, yeah, like.
Well, what I think really works for that is that everybody in the room has to state. It empowers everybody in the room and moreover, everybody has ownership. So you let people know that you are for something or I can't live with this. But then there's a responsibility for the person who says they can't live with it to articulate what they can live with. And at least in one process I was in, there was a real attempt to try and address that person's concerns, but at a point, then you move on because.
Thank you.
I like it.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I'd like to add to that a little bit.
And then I know that Tom and Tina had something.
At the Planning and Zoning Commission level at the county and also the Board of Supervisors, they don't call it will live with decision making, but that's how it operates, that's how it works. And it's the very nature of making a compromise that is missing in other venues in this country right now. We're talking about that as possibly the best way to deal with this. It's compromise in and of itself. which is necessary to move forward. Not everybody gets what they want, so they get a little less and made a compromise, but it moves the whole project forward. So I concur with you on that.
I'm not familiar with these other two, but I was just going to ask the question, is it possible to have a hybrid that is, have the we'll live with it with all the discussion and everything, and when that's sort of resolved, then have a vote that requires some kind of supermajority?
I actually saw it in reverse of that, but I do like your idea of having that hybrid. But I was thinking that if you had Robert's rules until we got to a person who said either I'll live with it or the fist of 5, and then have that consensus happen might be a little more efficient. But I could be crazy. But if not, I like your idea.
A supermajority?
Yeah, like 2/3 or 3/4 or something.
Right, so you're saying if we would, if I'm understanding, we would use a will live with, or I don't know if we've arrived at that versus fist to 5. Because they're both ways to do it, that if we got through a few rounds, maybe like 2 or 3 rounds, and we still had people who said, I can't support this, I can't live with it, we would then say, okay, is there a super majority of
Do a vote, yeah.
of the group, 3/4 of the members present want to move forward with the proposal we have, and it lets us kind of get past the impasse of if there's somebody who's really can't get past something. And we accept that that's the way it is, because what I do think is just whatever we do can be more than one chance to vote it up or down, because you guys could persuade each other to change your mind if we're open-minded and respectful, civil and courteous. And that would be a better answer, I guess, in my experience often. So just checking that nobody's in the chat and has something to add. I know Michelle and Sarah have been listening carefully. I'm gonna let Tina, who's been waiting, go, and then if Sarah and Michelle, if you have something to add, I'll call you next.
Just listening, I was agreeing with her completely, and then what they both just said. So in order to get a consensus into the mindset, I think we do have to kind of have a little bit of a hybrid, because if we have a structure, which we need, it works, we're still using it, but then we have to have a way to go, hey, this person is environmental, and I might not have that expertise, and I may have made up my mind on something, which I'm not supposed to do, but I might. And then I look to her and I'm saying, I'm not good with this. She starts talking, I might change my mind. I think this is important enough that we could do a hybrid and do a structure, but with the caveat that, hey, you can change my mind. We're here as open-minded adults, right? So kind of liking that idea a lot.
Let me see if Michelle or Sarah have something they want to chime in on here.
Thanks for checking, Sarah. I'm good.
Me too. I like the discussion because I think that we're already getting to some kind of consensus.
Excellent point, Sarah.
So this is the other Michelle. I'm liking the idea of the hybrid that you guys have been talking about, and I think I'm thinking we could try that, and if it fails horribly, we could maybe modify again if we needed to. But I'm willing to try the hybrid.
Okay.
I'm okay with it.
Out.
So I just want to suggest that if we do fist to 5, that 1 has to be the thumb. All right. I actually wanted to support Diane.
So Al, you think we should just do the whatever it's called?
I like it the best because it does call on each of us to state a case and to work through those things. But the real consensus is that it's an agreement to move ahead as a group. The reason we vote is because in many cases you can't reach consensus, and so then you kind of go to the vote. But I think that's the last resort.
But also a reason we vote is to get, I don't know, I guess in this group, it's not going to be that way. at all, but is to get to the point a little bit quicker and spend more time talking to other things. And do you think that would work the same using?
I
that?
do.
Yeah, because people could just be like, oh,
Yeah.
yes or no.
Yeah, some people will go on and some people will just say, I agree.
I'm cool with it.
I mean,
I would just like to say that if there's proof that minds can be changed, because I do like this part, but after Diane spoke, I thought, well, that's good. So it's working.
We're already modeling the behavior we would like our decision-making process to encourage us towards. I love that. So I'm going to take away from this meeting as your staff liaison that I need to develop option 3 in a way that kind of incorporates the best of Robert's rules and has, I'm gonna call it like an escape hatch for when we're just spinning and not able to get out of it. That basically involves like a 3/4 vote to accept the most up-to-date proposal and move on. Does that feel?
I can live with that.
I can't think of an example, but something that comes up for me is that if, I can't remember what you called it, but like, if we're always using the supermajority and there's, and there's like specific voices that continue to not be able to come to a consensus, that we could have an analysis of like, is there something that we're not looking at as like a group? And that we could sort of pause and be like, what is happening here from a sociological perspective? Like someone said, like, if it totally fails, we'll talk about it again.
Yeah.
That we have that like meta analysis of like how it's going on.
Could we make that a responsibility of the chair and the vice chair? Is that if we're noticing that there's too many times where we didn't arrive at consensus, to ask the chair and the vice chair to get with the staff liaisons and set up a time to revisit it?
Yeah.
that might work for conflict resolution as well.
Yeah. And we're getting pretty close to the end of our time today. We did not get to talk about recommendations from the committee or conflict resolutions. I think we made a lot of good progress. That means that I can go and bring you an updated version of this working document with those questions outstanding for the next meeting. And so when we meet again, which would be Wednesday, December 6th from 5 to 8, we would try and get through this and some of the other material along the way. I think the only other one I wanted to check on is, I brought it up at the beginning, but we were not yet into decision-making space, but is everyone okay with staff not creating formal minutes and just using videos?
Yeah, as long as you got a reference to the, I mean, it sounds like you have everything down, transcript.
Yeah, it should be. Again, if it fails, then I will have to hustle and write notes the next day. I think that's gonna fall on me if we have a technology failure. So in the last couple of minutes, 2 things. If you guys have any feedback for us, and I see there's one comment in the chat, hang on. That Michelle was just supporting and saying yes. If do you have any feedback for us on how we organize this day? Because this was not on the fly, but not, a very formal way of conducting our meeting. Because it's good. It was great. I agree. Yeah. So if this
Yeah, I
is-
think it was sufficient for what we did today. Actual decision making about what going policies.
And, we have, every email, like if we want to all talk to each other, I just looked to see. The email, last email I got, did not include all this.
Yeah, I did a blind carbon copy last time because we had
But I
talked
think it's
about that.
nice. I'd like us to be able to all.
Thoughts on that?
I like it. I was just gonna say before the meeting's over, can I ask a question?
Sure. Anybody thoughts on having everybody's email address on one email? Please don't, I guess staff's request is like, please don't like get into like a group text chain where
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
middle school Girl Scouts and if it descends to that, I will be like, hey guys, save it for the meeting. Yeah, but you know, just being thoughtful of that because yeah, it does. We don't want to fill each other's inbox, but we do want to have ways to get in touch and yeah, and CC me and Melissa on everything is another important piece of that.
Yeah, I think it's important for everyone to be able to get a hold of me to play guitar with them if they'd like.
Yeah. Musical endeavors are not committee activities.
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe that's how we can recommend the council.
If somebody writes a song about the plan, I'll be really happy actually. I think Sarah asked me before the meeting by email, she said, she goes, how are we gonna incorporate the arts into this effort? So
There you go, there it
singing is
is.
the way to go. I'm down.
Who's the other songwriter in here?
I don't know, we're gonna have a talk about that. But thank you all very much. As I said, our next meeting is gonna be here, December 6th, 5 days, still a bunch more stuff to go through. I'll get you a packet probably the week after Thanksgiving. And you should definitely feel free to reach out to me if you read the packet, questions, or you want to talk about something ahead of time. You know, that's perfect.
Yeah, I was just, I have no interest in being sure what is true. But people who are interested, you know, please prepare, you know. Let us know.
Yeah, is that, would you guys like, I know we talked about written questions, would you like people who are interested in the chair, vice chair to page together, or just come and say, here's why I want to be the vice chair, why, what I think I can do?
Have them tell you,
Okay.
and then you can present us with a slate.
Before we adjourn,
Say that again.
I was just seeing if Michelle or Sarah, Michelle Jane, Sarah, or Michelle McNulty had anything to add before we adjourn.
I'm gonna make sure we have more Cheetos.
Please, that's the most important thing. And commission members, wanted to ask you guys, if you wouldn't mind, posing for a picture as a group picture on our first day, would that be okay?
Yeah.
Are you guys okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Great idea. We'll do it out front, in front of all the signs and stuff. If you want to get out there, you're more than welcome to. If you want to sit next to them, that's cool.
So real good.
Thank you, everybody. Hold on, first one. Oh, thank you. Are you gonna go take a photo? I like your house.
In which case then, next time. I'd spend that.